wondered when we were going to have a handoff for that.
This morning. How are you? I'm tired. Your earrings are so cute. Your earrings are so cute. This was really sweet the way they did that. So she did her announcements. They said she would live in Tiffany for rare. Her kids were so cute. You could just tell. Like each one had something very funny to say, and the way they shared it was just like it was just polite and cute. And you could tell they're being themselves, but also like knowing it. Like this one kid walked away. Oh, good morning. I don't know who all you people are. And like went to his desk. And you can tell it was kind of like, I'm really nice and awesome. Who are you? Why are you really so they did this customer care super fan, and then she did her parent of the year, which was Polly, and then she did her teacher of the year. So it's really cool. We got this couple things instead of just customer care.
How are you? We're good. Well, we're good. You might have driven the first. Oh, that's all right. We're going to miss it. How are you today? Well, it's usual. This is going to be our school board president.
She was Sometimes we do better whenever the money's tight. So are you talking about the ones on the 6th? Tell us what the sign up I knew the minute you said that. English family, because that's interesting. Yeah, and don't create anything that you're Someone who doesn't just do students, they do.
Now she's a friend, so that's in Katie, yeah. So I was in, I thought, isn't it though? That's what she said. I don't, and then chasing after me.
And I brought today, this is kind of
I got pulled over from high school.
Pulled out of your room here to 3 months away.
I was going to, and I panicked because, you know what, I do know my insurance is like, but I couldn't find it in that moment. I said, yeah, and then he's like, well, who's your name? I'm like, is that right? I think it's a great wow, it's not that bad. And I think I just sped up more than more stuff. But I think I just gauged it wrong. And I just
Glad y'all left some of us comments.
and I got that every day, and I was going to on each of the information at the very top of the contact for that. Make it simple. And then I got to go to the website and say, they don't even tell them now because I got to do a little bit at a time.
They did call it Harvard.
And I'm like, oh, I miss it so bad. I'm like, look at that. Oh, it makes sense.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Wow. It was on his math assignment. I said, did you know that? She said, yes, to the substitute.
I was like, oh.
Family dinner. Get this kid in the correct. Don't worry, Brandon. We're going to show you later.
They don't, they're like, what?
Now, give me that sitting like you're in a attendance ward against someone. Yeah, you have to ask them.
The two classes, the second grade class, so that's all six.
Stuff like. Oh, yeah. They're having attendance for grade, for the classes, or like sending videos of them looking at me, attendance video.
Oh,
I'm not really good at that. Not really well at the flat.
No matter what. It don't matter if and obviously you're welcome to sit with me.
Yeah, I don't want to be there.
Daily, like, I can provide two.
Correct.
A lot. I've already checked. I want to do it. So they have a doorknob. It looks exactly the same. Called a custodial feature. Can't automatically respond to itself. That's what I would like to know. Okay. That you're about $400 something. About $1,000. So about $1,000.
We won't buy it, we promise.
It's on my radar. I guess every class is a fundraiser, try to raise $150 class. But that would be the idea.
You've been doing okay. Good. Right, that's the best we can do there. I think there's one of the
All four levels.
good to see.
I know some of you guys are still eating, and that's good. But to be respectful of Representative Slawson's time, we're going to go ahead and get started. Let me first, on behalf of Granbury ISD, thank you for being here today. Just so that Representative Slawson has a good idea of her audience, and we do have Evant ISD. We're going to go ahead and start, but they may be coming in a little bit late. But we have 8 school districts here. If you are a board member, if you don't mind just kind of raising your hand across the room. So there are some of our trustees, superintendents that are with us today. We have superintendents here, and then just administrative staff. Perfect, administrators. So we we are glad you are here. Some of us had the opportunity to be down in Austin Tuesday and get a brief overview at the TASA legislative session of what's going on. I think it's always important to actually spend time with our representatives. We have the ability to talk about what's important in public education. And so thank you, Representative Slawson, for giving us your time. And for those of you who don't know, Representative Slawson serves on the Calendar, State Affairs, Pensions, Investments, and Financial Services Committee. Is that still accurate?
2 of the 3 are selected.
2 of the 3 are selected. All right, and you can tell us more about that. First generation college student, started her college career at Carleton, earned a BA summa cum laude from the University of Texas at Dallas, and her Juris Doctorate from the University of Texas at Austin. She's recognized as a dynamic, effective, influential leader, a long history of service and organizations, making a positive difference in the lives of her neighbors. And she's an attorney, an entrepreneur, and a small business owner in her hometown of Stephenville. And so if you'll join me in welcoming Representative Slawson.
Well, thank you all so much, and thank you, Dr. Glenn, for having us over here today. The opportunity during a legislative session to visit with all of our school personnel is invaluable to me. So I know you're in the middle of a school day and there's a lot going on. I didn't know if we had 4 people in the room. This is a much bigger audience than I anticipated, and I very much appreciate y'all coming out here today. I think that our longest distance travel may be Copperas Cove that came in. So our House district is 4 counties. It's Hood, Erath, Hamilton, and Cordell. Numerous school districts within that 4-county area. We started the legislative session back in January. Each session runs for 140 calendar days. So we'll go until the end of May. I have a little countdown tracker on my phone. Checked it this morning. We're on day 46. We got 94 left to go. So we're roughly 1/3 of the way through this session. So a couple of stages that happen in any legislative session. For the Constitution, the first 30 days of any session, we can't pass any bills. We start getting our respective bodies organized, the House and the Senate start meeting. We can file all the bills we want to, and there have been thousands of bills filed already. Just in our chamber, there's over 2,700 bills that have already been filed. Not everything will get a hearing, but many of them will. During the second 30 days of a legislative session is when committees can begin meeting and starting to consider some of those bills as they're referred out. Our House committees started meeting this week or the week before. Some of them start meeting, some of the ones that I'm on start meeting next week. And then come that 80th day of session is when the chambers can begin actually hearing on the floor and voting on bills as they come out. So we're still about 2 weeks away from that. March 10th is the day where that action can start happening, other than items that our governor designates as emergencies. And those can begin to be heard on the floor a little sooner. So the committees that I get to serve on this session, we have some exceptional committee appointments. I'm on the State Affairs and Calendars committees again. Very grateful for those. Those are meaningful seats for rural Texas to have. State Affairs can hear all manner of bills that come through there. Last time we dealt with bills reforming the electricity market and dealing with grid and PUC and ERCOT. We also had rural broadband bills that came through there. Then we had religious freedom, all kinds of bills topically. The Calendars Committee is the gateway committee that schedules bills that have been approved by committee to actually get to the floor. So every single bill, other than appropriations, at some point comes through the Calendars Committee. And then the third one this time will be judiciary and civil jurisprudence. So anything affecting courts and the operation of those will come through that committee. A particular interest to this group is going to be the Public Education Committee. We have a new chair of that committee this time. He is an exceptional representative. It's Brad Buckley out of the Killeen area. He is a great friend to public education. His family has long served in that region of Texas. His wife is an assistant superintendent, I believe, for Killeen ISD. So I think he's going to be an excellent leader for the work that's going to go on in there. Their committee begins meeting next week, the 28th, I believe. The topics coming up on that look like just some invited testimony that they're having from the TEA and from the Texas School Safety commission. So you can watch all of these online if you wish to tune in for it. And of course, once they start hearing bills in there, the public is invited to come down and testify on those, and I'm sure they will welcome anyone. If you do decide to come down and testify on anything, we would love for you to let our office know you're coming. We will welcome you in. If you need space to hang out in while you're waiting on your committee bills to come up, come on in. It's your office, and we'd be happy to host you in there. So I thought I'd go through some of the priority items that have already been identified, some of the things I know are happening, and then just open it to questions. We are so grateful for the partnership that we have with our school personnel. Jeremy, I think it was like 2 weeks ago, maybe, Monday afternoon, I had an issue come up and I needed some feedback from some school administrators. And I started making a few calls. And it was, I'm gonna say it was around 3:30 on Monday afternoon when I called you. And as the phone was ringing, I thought, maybe not the best time of day to call a superintendent, school dismissal on a Monday afternoon. But you answered and we went through the issues real quick, and that kind of resource and availability is vital because we were able to talk it through and I was able to handle the issue and move on down the road. And to be able to gather some information from a couple different stakeholders. I didn't call everybody. I solicited 3 different opinions. They were all consistent in the way we went on that. But it's important, and I appreciate that very much. As we go through session, there will be bills that come up that for your districts, you're going to feel like this is the greatest thing ever. Please vote in favor of this. Or you're going to feel like this is the worst thing I've ever seen. It needs to be changed or it needs to die on the vine. And I need to hear from you on those instances. We have here with us today our wonderful Chief of Staff, Teresa Hotze. She's in the Austin office along with some other staff down there. And we will make sure before you leave here today, you have the contact numbers and email addresses on how to reach out to us so that we can hear from you. So on some of those bills, the governor and the lieutenant governor have already put out all of their priority items. The Speaker of the House has started releasing some of his. There's more to come on those in the next week. So we know a few education items have already been out there. In the State of the State address, the governor identified 2 that are specific to education. One was he would like to see an expansion of educational savings accounts, vouchers, other nomenclature. And then the second he identified was protecting student personal data from some of these online and big tech platforms that are pulling it in and using it for their own purposes out there. And so that'll touch a little bit on education because we use devices in our schools now. The lieutenant governor had 5 items on his priority list. I don't think that any of them have been filed as bills yet, but he has already designated the numerical order of those. On 8, he's going to have some kind of parental school choice bill. 9 is a teacher pay raise. Don't know what that's going to look like yet, but he emphasized that one. 10 was a 13th check for retired educators. Just a little side note, in the House, I do believe that Glenn Rogers, who formerly represented Hood County, has already filed a COLA version of it. So I don't know which will make it through, but both of those are back in the queue again. 11 over in the Senate is a school safety bill. You know, we have a surplus of revenue that the controller has already notified us about. And there's competing ideas about how to use that surplus, but school safety is on the mind of all of the big 3 leaders in Texas. I don't know how it's going to shake out yet. Worth noting that last year in the fall, we had the opportunity, we went to a couple different public safety summits with many of you who are in the room today to talk about what's good and what we need within our school districts out here. Our rural areas are not like Houston ISD and Austin ISD and Barry County schools. And what makes sense or would be a valuable tool for some of those might not even be workable for us out here. So we are paying attention to what some of those school safety ideas will look like. And then I think the final of the lieutenant governor's priority items was a bill to deal with not having obscene books in our school libraries. So that's a hot button topic. There's a lot of activity around that one too. I know for some of our school districts, it's been a hot topic of conversation too. So we're looking at all of those and appreciate y'all keeping an eye on it too and giving us some feedback as we get into it. Some of the bills that we are specifically working on, we have filed a version of reforming the STAR test. There's a couple of competing versions of that out there. From a legislative perspective, what would be a better tool? We have to get feedback from our educators on. But Granbury ISD has given us a list of priority items there, and Dr. Glenn, I believe that yours included setting up a commission to really study how we can have a better tool available. I think that's a fantastic idea originating from the school districts, but we all know that STAR isn't it, right? So what do we do in the meantime? I don't know which version of those may move through, just want y'all to know that it is on the radar and immense dissatisfaction with the STAR test as it is right now. We have had the pleasure of working with Wade and Granbury ISD on a specific idea that came out of those public safety summit meetings. We have a bill in for a drafting request right now that would allow y'all to duty belt carry for uniformed school personnel. Something that would work here, wouldn't be mandatory to all schools. That's important too, is still having the ability to adapt within your own school district about what the right tools for school safety are for y'all. Then there are a series of bills filed by some other representatives that I'm kind of watching. Steve Allison is a representative out of the San Antonio area, and he's filed a couple of noteworthy bills. One of them deals with how can school districts better address students who are demonstrating habitually violent, dangerous behavior in the educational environment. Through some of the meetings, we've come to understand the difficulty faced by our school districts when you can't remove a student from an environment and they're creating a risk to other students and to staff and personnel there. So Representative Allison's bill, in a nutshell, provides for, after a review process, the school district can move that student into a virtual learning environment so that the educational services are still being provided, but not at the risk of students and personnel in the school facilities. I don't know if it's the best idea or if y'all have other ideas on how to do that, but I do think it's important to come up with some way to address these instances. When we had our meetings last fall, one of the specific things that came up in that was the frustrations of not being able to better protect all the parties involved under the current system. Over in the Senate, Senator Campbell has a version of a bill to expand the school marshal program. Steve Allison also has a bill out to provide for a mobile alert tool in instances of emergency in the school districts. It's one of those school safety ideas that's come out, being able to, with an app on your phone from wherever you're at on the school, immediately notify law enforcement officers. Some schools already have a version of that they're using. Let's see. There's one out there, Dr. Glenn, that I think you had mentioned about including within the CTE funding the junior ROTC programs. They'll have a very active one here, so that's one that has been filed. And then that's kind of the highlights of the things that I know that are out there already, or things that I know are coming particularly from the other chamber, but we just haven't seen what shape or form it's going to take just yet. So aside from legislation, the other thing that I would, actually that's not entirely true, I'll tell you one more. House Bill 18 that our office just filed this last week is one that deals with children's online security. So we know that in an increasing digital environment that our kids are subjected to algorithms out there that are leading them on all kinds of pathways. And we see from CDC data to anecdotal evidence, I'm sure y'all see it just in your experiences with students and kids too, that our kids are increasingly disconnected and dealing with a variety of mental health issues that in some form or fashion is being, there's a causal connection to their online digital experience. What we don't know as parents and as educators is how exactly are these kids being tracked online and what are these algorithms being utilized and what paths are they leading them down. So House Bill 18 will put parents back in control of their kids' online digital presence by requiring that all of these platforms receive parental consent to collect and utilize kids' data when they're online, and giving parents the ability to opt kids out of the tracking functions and the algorithmic detours that they take, and giving parents the ability to delete that information out there for their kids. So we're talking about 13 to 17-year-olds. They're not yet fully grown adults, aware of the consequences of a lot of things in life, and it's our duty to protect them. House Bill 18 will do that, and that'll tie into the governor's state of the state priority about protecting kids' online data information. So the only other thing out there is something really fun. We have the ability within our office to host 4 kids from our district for the honorary page program. And what that is a student is able to come down during sessions and spend a half day with their Texas legislature, working behind the scenes with the sergeant's office, delivering items to different representatives, coming out on the floor with their state rep, seeing how the legislative process works, and just kind of some nuts and bolts behind the scene. They get to go all throughout the building, see their senator's office too. It is a wonderful opportunity for our rural Texas kids to come get involved in their government and start to envision themselves as the next leaders of our area, which is exactly what they are. During the session, we can host 4 kids from our district. That's not many, but I throw it out there because I don't want us to get to the end of session and have a seat left untaken. That would just, So, as you are aware of kids within your schools that are particularly civic-minded, demonstrate those leadership capabilities that you want to grow in them, as young as 6th grade can come down all the way through seniors in high school. Please encourage them in that. We can get you the application information to send down. They come down with a parent, spend the day. We'll host them in the office and make it a really fun opportunity for them. Depending on what's going on the floor, they can usually come out to the speaker's dais and get to bang the gavel too. And, that's often a highlight of the whole experience. So we would love to see children from your schools come down and visit their state offices. So that's kind of what I had to share, and I would be really interested in hearing from y'all on things going on out here that I should be aware of, questions that you have.
So one thing they talked about on Tuesday was House Bill 31. There seemed to be, I don't know how much bipartisan support there is, but the panel that was on the stage was mixed. And so HB 31 is funding for school districts on enrollment rather than ADA. And so as you kind of consider that, knowing that I think we're one of only 6 states that still fund on attendance rather than enrollment, knowing that when kids are absent, we're still responsible for paying the light bill and paying our teachers. And so I would kind of like to get your thoughts on that.
I know that it's been filed. I don't know where it's going to go in the process yet. I do think it's already been referred to committee though, so it'll probably, it's a low bill number. Those go first and we'll probably come up with hearing first. I think that there are bipartisan authors on that bill. I don't want to talk out of turn, but I think it may be Representative Hinojosa in the House that filed it, but I think she has some Republican authorship on there too, which is an indication of a broader base of support, but I don't know yet where it's going to happen. I do think that was one of the issues that was flagged on maybe the sheet that you sent us on priorities about funding based off of holistic enrollment and not day-to-day. And that ties in too to that Allison bill on when you're removing students who are a problem within a traditional classroom to another environment. And I think even that bill was ensuring that virtual attendance would be covered for your enrollment purposes. But I think it was still calculated on an attendance basis, not an enrollment. Y'all ever think about it?
The other thing that we heard a lot about, and I didn't really hear the details on, but it had to have been mentioned a half a dozen times, was a parent bill of rights and a teacher bill of rights. What do you know about that?
I haven't seen anything concrete on it. I've only seen it mentioned the same way. And that, the governor has mentioned that several times too, but what specific bills will fall under that, it'll probably be a variety of House and Senate bills that fall under those topics. Yes, sir.
Teacher residency program. We partnered with Tarleton State University, and it's where we pay student teachers, they call them teacher interns now, to $20,000. We're funded through a grant right now for 3 years, and we've been paying them $20,000 a year, and they start at the beginning of school all the way through the end, and we've just seen huge improvements in preparation of these teachers, these student teachers. And the idea is to train them better so they'll stick around and not leave within the first 5 years. Do you know anything about?
I don't know anything on that one. Dr. Hurley from Tarleton was in Austin just this last week testifying in front of appropriations, and I went in there with him. And it wasn't specific on that, but he was emphasizing to appropriations the value of the different programs through Tarleton that train particularly rural students in our areas to keep them in our areas. And you might have been speaking more holistic to keep them within the profession, but keeping them out here in our area too is particularly valuable. But I don't have any specific on that grant.
Like 2853?
Yeah, it was filed by Duncan, and I don't remember the number. Dr. Sloan knows the number, but it's very interesting statistics. Our principals here that are certainly give you some more insight from it, but it's an exceptional program, and we're seeing some real gains in teacher retention and recruitment. And across the nation, this type of program that Tarleton has, it's very rare in the state right now. It's showing 80 to 90% retention rate by those student teachers that go through 5 years down the road versus an alternative certification. So there's a lot of value to it. It's been fun to watch these young people come in.
So 80 to 90% retention after 5 years. Okay.
That's what Dr. Sloan shared with us this week.
So you don't know if there's an appropriation for it right now in the budget, or?
It's funded through ESSER, so like COVID
Okay,
relief funds,
okay.
and so that will disappear after 19 years.
Gotcha. Have anything?
One thing I just hope is addressed at some point, it's just dealing with facilities, because when we're talking safety and everything, a lot of the safety grants, they're great, and there's a lot of things you can do, but in some of the smaller communities, just with tax values and everything else, like we've got a building right now, our junior high building, it's really bad. We don't have the money to build a new one. Even if we bonded to the very top, we can't do it. So I think for safety, there's got to be some way to help districts with facility funding down the road. Because I think with it being on tax values alone, there's a lot of inequity right now. So I think that's a problem with small schools right now.
Okay. And I think there's some $600 million of potential appropriations out there from various bills that would deal with different kinds of infrastructure, particularly related to school safety. I don't know that anyone would touch on specifically what we're talking about there too.
Because that's like I said, if you had to build a brand new building, anyway, I just think it's I think a lot of the smaller district superintendents would echo that. It's just outside of money, to build it, so.
Just kind of staying on safety for a second. I cut my teeth in a small district, and I've kind of had the opportunity to see small, mid-sized, and larger districts. The real large districts, they're able to find school resource officers or partner with PDs. It gets expensive here in Granbury, and probably Cove would be the most comparable to us. There's a shortage of law enforcement. Even our sheriff's office and our PD have trouble finding officers. So what we've done, and there's kind of a consortium of districts that have done the same thing, is they've started looking at retired police officers and retired military veterans that will come in and serve as uniform marshals. And we have one of our marshals with us. You'll stand up. Yes, sir. And so our marshals, like at first glance, they do have the appearance of law enforcement, and of course the patches and badges reflect the marshal program. They probably the worst kept secret in Granbury is that they are armed. and then they do have the Kevlar vests. And so they really have everything a law enforcement officer has. But the one piece that they lack is the duty belt carry, and you mentioned that. And I'm gonna, Ray, do you mind touching on some of the benefits of duty belt carry? He's our chief of security.
Sure. So as you can see, stand up, you know, everything, if you saw him from across the room, you would just assume that was a Granbury police officer. And he has all that same equipment. He's in ballistic armor. He is armed. He has all those same things. He's TCOL certified, so that's the same agency that trains and certifies all peace officers. There's only 2 academies in the state of Texas that certify school marshals, and they are both TCOL police academies that when they're not doing classes of school marshals, they're doing police academies. So same people training them, same kind of training, all those things. And once they're certified, they're licensed TCOL marshals. I actually send in a form and a check to be able to carry their license for each and every one of them. So one of the things that we're asking for is something called duty belt carry, right? This is a training gun. This is a blue plastic gun. But this is what we call a level 3 retention holster. Okay, you've probably seen these on every law enforcement officer ever, right? And so that's worn on a duty belt. It has multiple levers that have to be activated in order to get that weapon out of the holster. So if somebody comes up, they couldn't fight that away from you if they wanted to, okay? So in the meantime, these guys are armed, but they have to find creative ways to carry that firearm concealed. So either in some kind of an appendix situation, some kind of a kangaroo pouch in the front of their ballistic vest, some kind of admin pouch that zips open and has something there. All of those things are just less safe way to do it. More cumbersome way for them to be able to access that. And so duty belt carry is the only thing that really makes sense in that situation. It also allows them to carry a duty sized firearm. Okay. So duty sized firearms mean that, you know, that magazine maybe holds 17 rounds of ammunition versus a smaller 7 or 8 round magazine that you have to get in a smaller gun that you have to hide on your person somewhere. They also are more accurate. They're just a better choice for safety and security. And so we're already having these guys licensed and certified through the state, the same people that verify and vet all police officers in the state of Texas. It just doesn't make any sense that we're still hiding their gun on them somewhere, because there's not anything about this person that does not say what his job is and what he's there to do, right?
So full-time law enforcement, it gets expensive. And Carden, I know is heavy on some of the rural districts in the room. So being able to find someone who is qualified, who can go through the free marshal training, and that you can kind of set the price point for, you're not having to pay the market for a police officer. But you can find that retired police officer that maybe has grandkids in the district or wants to be a part of the district, and you can set that price point. And for us, it's probably about half, maybe less than half of what a GPD officer would make in Granbury, which allows us to have more to cover all 10 of our campuses and put more bodies on each campus. But the duty belt carry is a big piece of it for us to really be more reflective of law enforcement. And again, all of these guys are either former police officers or they're former veterans. They serve in the armed forces.
To piggyback off of that a little bit, I'm at Morgan Mill, Superintendent Morgan Mill. We are tiny, so we have the gardening program. Talking about having to hide the firearm, you know, you got a kindergarten teacher who's on the floor with kindergartners all day trying to hide a, weapon. There is absolutely no way we can afford to hire law enforcement. We can't. I don't have it in my budget, much less finding somebody out there, So if we could find somebody and we could have funding for that, that would be awesome.
Just kind of go on the other knee jerk, but I did read in an article that one bill was filed that any licensed carrier could carry on campus.
Oh.
Please don't do that.
Please don't.
Just we would like to be able to say, at least we have authority who carries and who doesn't, because there's just I feel like if anybody goes out and gets their concealed license and then we have every teacher on campus carrying, that I'd like to have, I think we need control over who
Absolutely. And our guardians are trained. If you see someone with a gun, you don't ask questions. So anybody that walks in school with a gun, they're putting themselves in real danger.
I haven't seen that one yet. Do you know who's?
It was on Texas ISD just recently, I didn't go back, but, and he filed it last time too, so I don't think it has a lot of support, but it, you know, it made the news. It would be.
Bob Hall.
Yeah, it'd be kind of, in my opinion, it'd be scary, and, you know, we had a situation and, just a rising star just recently, superintendent was guardian who accidentally left his gun on the bedroom floor. He's terminated now, but if you had a lot of people that weren't trained, there's gonna be more instances.
And that's a real fear for our teachers who do carry.
There is also a bill out right now I saw to expand I think the Marshall program to allow, or to remove the requirement that they're an employee of the district, meaning they could be a volunteer. So maybe you know, but they would still have to go through all the TCOL certifications and things like that. So that may be an option for some people. I don't know if you had a retired somebody in your community that was willing to volunteer to do some of those duties. I know that bill is out there right now as well. So, and the Guardian program, again, you know, it's as good or as bad as the people that run it in each individual campus, right? Because it's very loosely regulated. So.
And something else that came up, HB 4545 put a lot of mandates on schools that were not funded, and they relied on ESSER funding to cover it. I know there's some legislation out there to either repeal it or to or at least fund it if we're going to have it.
I've been hearing that a fix for that is coming, but I haven't seen yet what it might look like. But that's come up several times.
And I'll go through, I don't mind doing all the talking. There was, it just, because not everyone got to be in Austin Tuesday.
Yes.
The percentage, so the state of Texas originally was supposed to fund public schools. And it was interesting because there was a gentleman there, I guess, who's been in the House since the late 80s. And he said when he first started, 65% of the state's budget went to funding public schools. Now it's down to 35%, and the rest is funded by property taxes. And that was pretty intriguing. But then he broke down the state's portion, and he said the state funds public schools in that 35%. It's $15 billion go to public schools, and $4 billion go to charter schools. And that on it in and of itself is, I found that interesting, but what was probably the most interesting piece is that he pointed out how many kids the public school educates. We educate 93% of the kids in Texas compared to charter schools, which educate 7%. So when you consider 93% versus 7%, and then you look at the 15 billion versus 4 billion, it seems like the state is getting more bang for their buck with public
Do
schools.
charter schools receive any of the property tax funding? I don't recall. Funding
I
mechanism.
don't believe so.
So it might, I don't know, but that might be a difference in how that's allocated there.
I think you'll find, and probably most of the educators in this room would think that you can find momentum for an increase in the basic allotment, teacher raises. You mentioned that the COLA, probably over a 13% from the retirees that I talked to.
Oh, I can assure you, from the retirees I talked to, they would like to see. And I think that the retirement fund is at an actuarial soundness level that I think that's being seriously considered. But you don't want to move to a COLA and then pull down the actuarial soundness again to a level where it's going to be beyond the 30-year.
Right.
So, let's see.
So yeah, you just look at where that threshold is. And then obviously, I think even the teacher and parent bill of rights, you're going to find that educators will get behind that. And so that leads something that is going to be hot button with the governor pushing hard is vouchers. And it's something that I think all public schools are worried about it, because every dollar that comes away from public schools and goes to a private or a charter school is $1 less for us. But a good point was made, and it is if private schools and charter schools, there's no financial accountability that goes along with that money. There's no academic accountability. like STAR testing that goes along with that money. They're not responsible for any type of open records requests, so you can't see where that money is going or how it's being spent. And so they were able, basically they were able to take those funds away and then still have the ability to pick and choose which kids they take. That's really going to destroy public education, and we've seen that happen in other states.
And that's been the rub all along. And the divide on this issue, as you probably know, has been typically between rural and urban and not really R&D, honestly. And I come from Stephenville ISD. My two daughters are over there today at Stephenville ISD. I'm a big supporter of our public schools. I have not been a supporter of vouchers for a few reasons. And those can generally be broken down into my friends and families I know who have chosen to move their kids out of public schools have been doing that for very specific reasons. Usually two categories. There's either something in the public schools that isn't working for their kids, usually it's that standardized testing component, or there's something missing from the public school environment that they really want for their kids, and that's usually a religious education component. So they go into a different environment to meet the needs of their kids. They're already making that choice. School choice is already out there available to them. In a situation where tax funding follows the child, a very legitimate concern becomes, so does the government. At some point, the government has to follow that funding because of the things you're talking about. There has to be some accountability and transparency piece for the taxpayers. So what does that do? Does that introduce testing into a private school environment that is why those families left in the first place? Or when the government comes in, do we then have some issues with some parochial system of education that taxpayers might not agree with and then want to regulate or remove that from that private school environment, which also destroys the reason why some families are going there. So as I stand here right now, I don't know what kind of support that's going to see in the House. I think the signal has been sent from the other two, from the Senate and from the governor, that they want to see some movement on it. I don't even know if anybody in the House has filed a companion to the Senate version of it yet. Senator Middleton out of the South Texas area has filed the education savings account version of a bill, but I don't think there's a companion. I could be wrong. It could be out there, but I don't think it has been yet.
When you have conversations with your colleagues in the House, you feel similar feelings from the other representatives?
I think there's a rural-urban divide for sure. And if I was a representative down in Harris County, I would probably feel a little bit different about what's going on in the schools and the education being provided to our students down there. A whole lot different than I feel about Stephenville ISD, where I drop my daughters off each morning.
One of the fallacies with the voucher system, as I see it, is the misstatement that the kids to whom they are directing that to give them an equal playing field. And surely they have considered that those parents who are lower income do not have transportation to transport those kids. They do not. Most of them are working parents. If they're not, they are facing issues with regard to the additional cost. And a friend of mine commented, he is an administrator in a private school, and he looks forward to that because he said that their tendency would be to raise their tuition just that much more because they could be selective about who they took. And so those are things that y'all need to hear that we're hearing out here, because can the kids that they are targeting afford the laptop, they have to have in-house good, reliable Wi-Fi, because the kids do not bring home books. They do all of their studying on some sort of technology instrument, depends on where they are. So they have to have that. They have to have, and then my concern is a different one. What do you do when you take a kid who already is struggling and put them where socially and economically they do not fit? what are you gonna do with my child who doesn't wear designer clothes on Fridays or on the weekends because they're in uniforms during the day? What kind of psychological thing are you doing to youngsters when you move them from an environment where they're much more equal to an environment where they are much less equal? So those are just personal observations.
Well, I'm sure that if the voucher bills make it to the point of a hearing in the Public Education Committee in the House, I'm sure that there will be numerous organizations and new media outlets alerting everyone here to that. And I encourage you to come down and testify. Those would probably be some very long hearing days, but it's going to be worth it to come down and engage and have your voice heard on it. So be on the lookout.
Teresa moving real close to
It
Shelby.
usually signifies that I need to stop talking a little bit and then he's going to pull me this way.
I do want to, if we could give Shelby a round of applause for being here. We'll kind of break and she'll stick around a few minutes.
I just want to make sure everyone has our office number and the best email to reach us in the office. Our office number is 512-463-0628. You can also find that on the Texas House of Representatives website if you just Google Representative Slawson. And then also for email, it's probably best to just email me directly. So it's Teresa, THERESA.Hotze, HOTZ as in zebra, @house.texas.gov, and Texas is spelled out, but there's also a Shelby.Slawson one if you didn't get that. And like she said, please let us know when things are coming through so that we can ping her and let her know.
They do. They ping me and keep me right.
If you've not gotten a chance to visit with Shelby, I'm sure she'll hang out for a few minutes here. Shake her hand, get to know her. She's an advocate for public education. She's an advocate for taxpayers in this community. She's always willing to listen to concerns. One of those things we don't always have to agree, but she's always willing to listen and be agreeable, and I think that's something we want in our representatives. So I'm grateful for you being here, and we have coffee. I think we probably have more to eat out there. Y'all are welcome to hang out and visit. We really appreciate your attendance, and most importantly, we appreciate the good work you're doing down in Austin. So thank you, Shelby. The districts that are here, if you are interested in ISD's legislative priorities, which Shelby referenced a couple of times, Dave Davis has a list of just things that we're trying to build a consortium of other districts with. Feel free to take one on your way out, and we're always willing to have an advocate. So thank you.